Andrea?
She was one of the Emilys.
One of the what?
The Devil Wears Prada 2, Hollywood proved us wrong, or did it? Hey everyone, it's Gilbert.K here. Welcome back to my channel. $233 million opening weekend for a sequel to a movie that came out 20 years ago. Hollywood looked all of us dead in the eye and said, "You were wrong to doubt us." Critics were divided, audiences went crazy, and Lady Gaga showed up in a custom Versace gown with a matching scepter to cause absolute chaos. And today we're talking about The Devil Wears Prada 2. Let's get into it. Let's establish what we're dealing with here, because the box office story alone is wild. The Devil Wears Prada 2 opened to $77 million domestically, making it the fourth biggest opening of 2026, behind Michael, the Super Mario Galaxy movie, and Project Hail Mary. Globally, $233.6 million. In one weekend, for context, the original Devil Wears Prada, a bona fide cultural touchstone, opened to just $27.5 million in 2006. The sequel made nearly 3 times that in its first 3 days. It's already earned 72% of what the original made in its entire theatrical run. Disney spent around $100 million making this film, and by the director's David Frankel's own admission, most of that money went straight to the cast. Meryl Streep, Anne Hathaway, Emily Blunt, Stanley Tucci, all back, and it worked. So the first question is, was this a great film, or was this just the most expensive nostalgia trip Hollywood has ever pulled off? What the film is actually about. But here's the thing a lot of people aren't talking about. This film actually has something to say, and it's more relevant than most people expect. The story picks up 20 years after Sandy Sachs walked away from Runway magazine. She's now an award-winning investigative journalist, and she gets laid off by text message during an awards gala. Sounds familiar? In 2026, that's not satire. That's Tuesday. She ends up back at Runway working under Miranda Priestly again, not by choice, but because the corporate bosses at Elias Clark need a credibility fix after PR disaster involving sweatshop labor and a new villain, a tech billionaire named Benji Barnes, played by Justin Theroux, who wants to buy Runway as a vanity project. Critics noted it looks like a lot Jeff Bezos with hair, and the film doesn't exactly hide that comparison. So underneath the fashion and the one-liners, this movie is actually about the death of journalism, about what happens when billion-dollar corporations treat newsrooms like toys, about whether a legacy media can survive in a world that no longer values it, and honestly, that is a bold swing for a sequel that most people expected to be pure glamour fan service. The cast who delivered and who didn't. Let's talk about the performance, because this is where it gets interesting. Meryl Streep, still untouchable. Critics across the board agreed on this. Miranda Priestly in 2026 is more nuanced, more emotionally layered character than in 2006. She's no longer just the Ice Queen villain. She's a woman watching everything she built get dismantled by people who don't understand what they're destroying. Time magazine said it best: Miranda goes down fighting, and Streep captures that fire perfectly. She's the best thing in this film, no contest. Anne Hathaway, charming, capable, but according to several critics, still too wide-eyed to be fully believable as a hardened veteran journalist. The Hollywood Reporter called her effortlessly charming, but noted the film leans more close horse than workplace comedy. She's good, but the role doesn't challenge her the way the first film did. Emily Blunt as Emily Charlton, now a bigwig at Dior, gets more to do this time. She runs with it. Her dynamic with both Streep and Hathaway is the engine of the film's best scenes. Stanley Tucci as Nigel, warm, heartfelt, and absolutely essential. His loyal to Miranda is one of the most quietly moving threads in the movie. And then there's Lady Gaga. We need to talk about this cameo because it's both the most fun, this in the film, and a perfect example of what holds back. Meryl Streep personally called Gaga on the phone and asked her to do it. Gaga was on her Mayhem World Tour, flew off between shows in London and Stockholm, filmed in Milan, and then flew back. She contributed 3 original songs: Runway, with Doechii, Shape of a Woman, and Glamorous Life. And her scene, a backstage face-off with Miranda at Fashion Week, dipping in a custom Atelier Versace gown from her 2012 Grammys archive, is genuinely electric. But one critic/film made a point I can't ignore. Gaga is so magnetic that she makes the rest of the film look worse by comparison. The scene introduces a fascinating history between her character and Miranda, and then the movie just moves on. That points to a larger structural problem. The film keeps introducing plot threads and dropping them, and that for me is the core issue. Final thoughts. Here's my honest read on Devil Wears Prada 2. This is a competent film that occasionally becomes a great one and never fully commits to being great when it has the chance. The film has a generally sharp premise, the journalism angle is timely, the villain is ripped straight from today's headlines, and Streep's evolved Miranda is the most compelling version of that character we've ever seen. Those are the ingredients of something really special. But then the film pulls its punches. Critics said it's the social commentary on the media industry is real but softened. The ending is too optimistic for the story it's trying to tell. As the NPR review put it, it's a story about the horrors of not working for a magazine, a word that barely exists anymore, and rather than sitting with that painful irony, the film wraps it in a bow. Here's my theory on why. When you spend $100 million and bring back one of the most beloved casts in modern film history, you can afford to make people sad. You cannot afford to leave the audience without their feel-good moment. So the studio gave the film a safety net, and that safety net is what prevents it from being the sharp, dangerous piece of cultural commentary it could have been. The New York called it selling a truckload of prosperous goods, but selling them awfully well. And honestly, that's exactly right. This is a very well-made product. It just isn't the cultural grenade the original accidentally was. The bigger picture, what this weekend really meant. Now let's zoom out, because this weekend wasn't just about one movie. It was about a statement. Never before in box office history has a female skewing film led the first weekend of summer. A slot that has been owned by Marvel for over a decade. Let La La for a sec, this was Marvel's territory, and a 20-year-old sequel about a fashion magazine just walked in and took it. That's generally historic, and the audience breakdown matters here. This wasn't just women 35 and older. 62% of opening day audience came after 5 p.m., suggesting a younger crowd making it a night out. The film drew across age groups, across genders, and across continents, posting the top opening for 2026 in Brazil, Italy, Korea, Australia, and over a dozen other markets. Hollywood needs to learn the right lesson for this. Not just reboot everything women loved in the 2000s. The right lesson is invest in female-driven stories. Give them real budgets, release them like they matter, and audiences will show up. They proved it here. The question is whether the studio are paying attention or whether we're about to get 3 years of legacy sequels aimed at women and calling it progress. Critics versus audience. Who's right? The film currently sits at 74% on Rotten Tomatoes from critics. Respectable, but not glowing. Audiences, 88%. Significantly higher than the original's 76%. An ACMA score, a 4.5 out of 5 on Postdoc. So who's right? Here's my take. Both critics are right that the film doesn't fully deliver on its premise. Audiences are right that sitting in that theater and seeing those 4 actors back together, older, sharper, and clearly having a blast, is a genuinely joyful experience. Those two things can coexist. A film can be imperfect and feel great to watch. What concerns me is when we see audience scores to dismiss valid criticism or use critical scores to dismiss genuine emotion resonance. The truth is always in the middle. And the middle here says Devil Wears Prada 2 is a very good time at the movies, just not quite the defining film it had the potential to be. The Devil Wears Prada 2, $233 million globally, a historic box office moment for female-driven films. The best Meryl Streep has been in years, and Lady Gaga cameo that deserves its own movie. Is it a masterpiece? No. Is it worth your time? Absolutely. Is Hollywood learning the right lessons from its success? That's the real question, and I want your answer in the comments right now. Drop it below. That's all, folks. Thank you for watching, and that's my The Devil Wears Prada 2, Hollywood Proved Us Wrong. Or did it? Episode. Don't forget to check other episodes on my channel, on all podcast platforms for the latest films, series reviews, trailer reactions, and exclusive film industry interviews packed with tips, inspiration, and recommendations. More stories, more insights, and more movie magic waiting for you. See you next one. Until next time, Gilbert.K out.